Immanuel and the Map of the Unseen. Immanuel stood at the edge of the Whispering Woods. His sturdy backpack tightened and his boots laced for a new adventure. He was dressed in his favorite green long-sleeve shirt and blue puffer vest, with his brown cargo pants tucked into his boots. He had already traveled the rivers of living well and climbed the mountains of finding wisdom. But this time, his golden compass was spinning in useless circles. He was searching for a place called Faith, but it didn't appear on any map. How can I find a destination that I cannot see? He wondered, clutching the strap of his leather satchel. Suddenly, an older traveler named Fidelis stepped out from the shadow of a massive oak tree. She was a tall African-American woman with silver-streaked hair and a face that held 1,000 stories of peace. She carried a polished wooden staff and a scroll that shimmered with a soft internal light. "Faith isn't about what your eyes can see, Immanuel," Fidelis said, her voice like a calm breeze. As the great book says in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. It is a journey where the heart leads the feet." Fidelis handed Immanuel the scroll. When he unrolled it, his heart sank. The parchment was completely blank. "There is no path here, Fidelis. How am I supposed to know which way to turn?" He felt a spark of doubt. Immanuel liked clear signs, sturdy bridges, and well-marked trails. An empty page felt like a mistake, not a guide. He looked from the blank scroll to his leather satchel, wondering if he had packed enough supplies for a trip with no directions. Fidelis looked toward the horizon, her eyes steady and full of light. "The path only appears when you take the step," she explained. "This journey is not just yours, Immanuel. You are walking a trail blazed by the great examples who came before you. To see where you are going, you must first see where they have been." She pointed her staff toward a misty canyon where the ground seemed to vanish into a sea of white clouds. But within the mist, faint silhouettes of ancient figures began to stir. Immanuel took a deep, shaky breath and stepped toward the edge of the cliff. As his boot hovered over the empty air, a shimmering stone suddenly materialized beneath him. Then another appeared, and another, forming a bridge of light. He realized that faith wasn't waiting for the whole bridge to be built before starting. It was trusting that the next stone would be there exactly when he needed to plant his foot. "I'm doing it," he shouted, his leather satchel bouncing against his hip. As they reached the middle of the bridge, the mist cleared to reveal a vast, timeless landscape. Fidelis walked beside him, her staff clicking rhythmically. "Look there, Immanuel," she whispered, gesturing to a vast, dry plain. "Our first stop is with a man who built a way of escape when there wasn't even a drop of rain in the sky." Immanuel peered through the golden light and saw a man with strong, calloused hands working on a massive wooden structure. They stood before Noah, a sturdy African-American man with a graying beard and a smile that reached his eyes despite the sweat on his brow. He was hammering a long cedar plank onto the side of a colossal boat. "Why build a boat in the desert, Mr. Noah?" Immanuel asked. Noah wiped his forehead and looked at the cloudless sky. "Because the Creator told me to prepare," Noah replied. "I haven't seen the rain yet, but I know the one who promised it is true." Fidelis opened her glowing scroll, and words appeared on the once blank surface. She read aloud. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 7 says, "By faith Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house." Noah didn't wait for the storm to start his work. He worked because he trusted the warning. Immanuel touched the wood of the ark, feeling the strength of a man who didn't need to see the clouds to know the rain was coming. They left the dry plains and entered a land of shifting sands and endless horizons. Immanuel's boots kicked up dust as they walked. "Faith also means leaving what is comfortable," Fidelis said. "Look ahead at the traveler under the stars." In the distance, Immanuel saw a man standing outside a simple tent, his face turned toward the night sky. He looked like he was searching for a home he hadn't yet found. The man was Abraham, an African-American elder with a regal bearing and eyes that sparkled like the constellations above. I left my country and my kin, Abraham told Immanuel, gesturing to the wide expanse. I don't have a map for this land, but I have a promise. I am looking for a city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. Immanuel realized Abraham was a pioneer of the unseen, moving forward, based only on a voice he trusted. Abraham pointed toward the distant hills, his hands steady. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 8 tells us, Fidelis added, that by faith Abraham, when he was called to go out, obeyed. And he went out, not knowing whither he went. Faith is the courage to start the journey, even when the destination is still a secret. Immanuel looked at his own satchel and the blank scroll, feeling a new sense of pride in being a traveler of the unknown. Near a white tent, they met a woman named Sarah. She was an African-American woman with a joyful laugh that sounded like singing. She was folding a small, hand-woven blanket, her eyes glowing with a miracle. They told me I was too old to have a child, Sarah whispered to Immanuel. But I learned that nothing is too hard for the Promise Keeper. I laughed with doubt once, but now I laugh with wonder. Fidelis smiled at Sarah and read from the scroll. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 11 says, through faith also Sarah herself received strength to conceive, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Even when our own strength fails, Immanuel, faith connects us to a power that never does. Sarah patted Immanuel's shoulder, her warmth giving him the courage to face the darker part of the path ahead. The landscape shifted again, and the bright desert sun disappeared behind jagged, towering cliffs. The bridge led them into a narrow, dark valley, where the shadows seemed to stretch like long fingers. Immanuel felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The path was no longer glowing, and the silence was heavy. He clutched the straps of his blue puffer vest, feeling small. It's so dark, he whispered, his voice trembling. Is there faith here too? Seeing his fear, Fidelis stopped and unslung a heavy object from her back, handing it to Immanuel. It was a round shield that caught the light of her scroll. This is the shield of faith, she said, quoting Ephesians chapter 6, verse 16. Use it to extinguish the flaming arrows of doubt. Immanuel took the shield. It felt weightless, but stronger than any steel. It was a protection for his heart, keeping his purpose safe when the journey grew difficult and the shadows tried to speak. They emerged from the valley and found themselves standing before the towering stone walls of a great city. High up in a window, a woman was tying a bright red cord to the frame. She was Rahab, a brave African-American woman with sharp, intelligent eyes. She looked down at Immanuel and nodded. I helped the messengers of the truth, she said quietly. I knew this city's walls would not stand, but the promise of the Creator would. Rahab took a great risk, Fidelis explained. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 31 says, by faith the harlot Rahab perished not when she had received the spies with peace. She chose to join the people of faith even when it was dangerous. Faith is choosing the right side, even when you feel like you are standing alone. Rahab let the scarlet cord hang as a sign of her trust, a bright splash of color against the gray stone. The scene shifted to a lush riverbank filled with tall, swaying green reeds. The air was thick with the scent of water and papyrus. We are near the great river, Fidelis said. Here, a leader had to make a choice between the treasures of a kingdom and the freedom of his people. He chose the path of hardship because he saw something more valuable than gold. They found a man standing by the water's edge, holding a tall, weathered staff. He was Moses, a majestic African-American man with a powerful presence and a humble spirit. He was looking away from a distant, golden palace toward a group of weary people. I could have stayed in the palace, Moses told Immanuel, but I would rather suffer with my people and follow the truth than enjoy the fleeting pleasures of a crown. Fidelis read the words that appeared on the scroll. Hebrews chapter 11, verses 24 to 26 says, by faith, Moses refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God. for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. He looked past the gold to see the glory of the unseen. Moses gripped his staff, his eyes fixed on a future only faith could see. Suddenly, the river before them grew into a mighty sea, its waves crashing with a roar. The path seemed blocked once more, but Moses stepped forward and raised his staff. The waters began to churn and pull apart, standing up like walls of glass on either side. "Don't be afraid, Immanuel," Fidelis shouted over the wind. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 29 says they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land. Faith opens doors that seem shut forever. Immanuel ran onto the sandy floor of the sea, his leather satchel bouncing and his shield held tight. He looked up at the fish swimming behind the walls of water, feeling the impossible become possible. He wasn't just reading about faith anymore. He was breathing it. Every step through the sea was a step deeper into the heart of the great promise. He felt the strength of Noah, Abraham, Sarah, Rahab, and Moses flowing into his own heart. As they reached the other side, they began to climb the final steep hill. A swarm of shadowy whispers tried to make Immanuel turn back, but he raised the shield of faith high. With every step, his confidence grew. He wasn't just following Fidelis anymore. He was leading with his own strength. At the summit, the mist finally evaporated, revealing a magnificent golden city bathed in eternal light, more beautiful than any palace Moses had left behind. Immanuel reached into his leather satchel and pulled out the scroll. To his amazement, the parchment was no longer blank. A beautiful, detailed map had drawn itself in glowing gold, showing every step, every encounter, and every mountain he had passed. "The map wasn't blank," he whispered in awe. "It was waiting for my footsteps to write the story. I had to walk it to see it." Fidelis smiled and rested her hand on his head as they looked toward the gates of the Golden City. "Well done, adventurer. You have learned the greatest secret," she said. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6 tells us, "Without faith it is impossible to please him, for he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. You sought him, and you found the way." Immanuel tucked the completed map into his bag, ready for the next chapter.